This council actually has a proud record of supporting international boycott campaigns against oppressive and apartheid regimes, and we secured positive change as a result of that. So if this motion is passed, it could prevent the council from boycotting goods and services that come directly or indirectly from any other country that is internationally condemned for human rights abuses and criminal acts. I cannot support that.
Well, one of the things the council leader also touched on there, Lord Provost, was apartheid. And I think that the inference by the motion that in some way we should have curtailed what we did, or what the vast majority of cities and nations across Europe did in relation to apartheid, that should have been curtailed, is completely bizarre. When a regime is operating in such a brutalist and horrific manner, we shouldn't be trying to build economic or cultural bridges with them to overcome that. We should be saying to them, that is wrong. You need to change the way that you act. And I'm astonished, I'm absolutely astonished that a party, that Councillor Gregg is from a party that classes itself as liberal, but yet would seek to prevent people from having open political discussion and protest at something which they view as wrong. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And I do find it a little bit ironic, Lord Provost, that a councillor who sought to have a cup of tea, I think it was, with Nigel Farage, is moving this. And I think that's an irony that we shouldn't perhaps forget. Moving forward, we should be proud of the fact that our city is diverse. Our city allows people to speak openly and to, if they want, politically protest peacefully against something which they don't believe in.
I mean, I feel very guilty about one thing I didn't do in my life, which was a failure to drive a group of individuals. On my part, I didn't do it, to try and drive them out. And that was something Aberdeen is really quite famous in history for, the Springbok rugby tour of the 70s. And I did not attend the demonstration against the Springboks. To be honest, I was 16 and I was scared I'd get dropped from the rugby team. But hundreds of people did, and hundreds of them were arrested, and hundreds of them were put in prison. And hundreds of them had or over 100, I think, had their bail paid for by John Lennon. And it did make an impact. We should be profoundly pleased that we did operate a cultural boycott against South Africa and an economic boycott. And while I failed in that particular, in the very earliest start of my political career, I did get onto my game a wee bit, and I did try and drive a legitimate business out of the city. I tried to drive Ellerman lines out of the city. They had an office in Bridge Street, and I was a consistent protester outside their door because they were facilitating the immigration of white people only to South Africa at that time, and I thought that was not the thing that it should be doing, and I was demonstrating against it. Now that's an example of where you might fall foul of this policy. Last week, I had the great honour of listening to a speaker who self-described as Mr. Putin's biggest enemy, Bill Browder, and he told in graphic detail of, for example, the 11-year imprisonment of his lawyer in Russia and his death after 8 hours of torture there, and he is seeking to have a boycott of certain things to do with that country and businesses. So again, I mean, I don't necessarily support that campaign. I'd have to look at it, but it's the sort of thing that people should campaign for and should feel free to campaign for in the city. We may have approaches any time, for example, to have cultural and economic links with the government of Syria. Some people may not think that's a good idea. They should have the right to take action about that.
I think it's inherent in the human character that we show a willingness to fight for greater freedom for all our fellow citizens. And I think particularly of the Scots, who played a major part in the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s, who lived by the mantra that it's far, far better to die on your feet than live forever on your knees. There is a place for protest if it can, in fact, enhance the quality of life for our fellow human beings. Do not let that right to protest be stifled.
South Africa and Nelson Mandela and apartheid and the Springbok rugby team, they were very powerful images in an earlier part of my life, as Councillor Crockett described. Mandela was imprisoned for his beliefs. He was imprisoned for seeking freedom, for racial harmony in his own country. He was imprisoned and indeed, in some parts of the world, labelled as a terrorist. And Councillor Donnelly seems to be very proud of his party, but I believe somebody in his party was very strongly in that line of labelling Mandela as a terrorist. South Africa, in my lifetime, was boycotted. It did suffer sanctions and trade was removed from that country. And that was a statement by some people in this country of their feelings of the support for Mandela and for freedom in that country.
We all speak about tolerance, we all speak about human rights, we all speak about equal rights. And a lot of you may know I was formerly in the police in London. Well, London is demonstration capital of the world. Every week there are demonstrations about one thing or another. And the one thing it shines through is people have the right to demonstrate. People have the right to let their views be known, and nobody is prevented from doing it. Now, Councillor Donnelly spoke proudly about the tolerance of his party. This is a party that policed the miners' strike. This is a party whose transport spokesman 2 days ago said that when the Southern Rail strike was over, they were going to take grounds to outlaw rail strikes. That's how tolerant his party is. We need to ensure that everybody gets a fair chance, everybody gets to express their views, whether we like it or not. It's their views and they're lawfully entitled to have them.